Hey, what's going on, students? This is Jack. So excited for our first Bridge Online. Can you believe it? We are online, about to have an incredible time tonight. I cannot wait to hear how God speaks to you through this incredible message we're about to listen to from Jess. Stay tuned, listen to the whole thing. There's going to be some important announcements coming right here at the end. So check out this incredible message from Jess.
Hi friends, if you don't know me, my name is Jess. I'm the Associate Youth Director here at Doxology Youth, and we are so excited for tonight. It is the very first online small groups right here, right now. I'm pumped, it's gonna be awesome. I know I can speak for all of our staff and all of our leaders when I say that we have missed getting to see you in person, and we're really sad that that's not an option right now, but we're super thankful for technology and just the opportunity to still be a part of your life, even when we're not face to face. And so we're so pumped for community here tonight and throughout the week online. And I know we're just so hopeful and so excited for everything that God is going to do in this season, for everything He's going to do in your life, through your life, in the weeks ahead. We know that He is so big and so mighty, and He has great things in store, even when we're in quarantine. And so tonight we're starting a new series. It's called Naked and Unafraid. It's based off of that TV show, Naked and Afraid, but what it's really about, what our heart is behind it, is that we want to have real and authentic conversations about what it would look like to live unafraid, to what God is calling us to do with our fear and how we should respond to it, and how we can inspire other people around us to live unafraid as well. And I know myself, as we've been preparing and getting ready to share with y'all tonight, I just keep getting this very ridiculous story in my head of this perfect example of how I usually respond to my fears. And it's a throwback. It's throwback to 2003, which, might have been born then, but it's fine. I was in the 3rd grade, and that year in school, I switched schools halfway through. And so after Christmas break, I started at this school where I didn't know anyone at all. And I remember the very first day, my mom took me in to class, and we got a tour of the building. We found our classroom. I met my teacher, showed me the desk, all of the first day of school things. And so for a good amount of time before school started, it was just my mom and the teacher and myself. And I remember as the minutes were ticking by, I became more and more anxious and worried about the other kids coming in. And I honestly could not tell you anything that my teacher said in that time before school. Even that day, I didn't hear any of it because I was so stressed out. And so when the bell finally rang, I was a little bit of a mess. And all of the kids came in, my mom slipped out and left, and the teacher took me to the front of the classroom to introduce me to everyone. And I remember I was standing up there, and she asks me a question about myself. And I am so stressed that I just start sobbing hysterically. And I don't remember specifically, but I'm pretty sure I just cried for a straight hour. I just was a mess and just ugly crying everywhere. And it was because I was just so afraid of who these people would think I was. I was so stressed that if the kids in the class really knew who I was, they wouldn't like me. That if they really knew what I liked to do and what my favorite things were, they wouldn't want to be my friend. I was worried that if my teacher knew what kind of student I really was and who I really was, she wouldn't like me. She wouldn't want to be my teacher. I was so stressed about being myself, about being vulnerable, about being authentic, to the point that all I could do was cry because I felt so overwhelmed. And I know most of you probably, hopefully, haven't cried in front of a group of strangers because you were afraid of vulnerability. But it's a real thing that no matter how we respond to it, all of us have dealt with vulnerability in some capacity. Maybe for you, you're just afraid of connecting with people. You keep your friends at an arm's distance because you know that if they get too close, they would have the opportunity to reject you. Maybe when you go to school, you make sure you look a specific way on the outside and act a specific way because you're afraid that if people really saw what was within you, they wouldn't like it. Maybe you're just afraid to be vulnerable, afraid to be yourself, because you feel like if you did, people would see you as weak or not enough. Friends, the truth is that vulnerability is a huge risk. Vulnerability is hard and scary because it's making a move with no guarantee of the outcome. It's like taking action. It's doing something without knowing what's going to happen afterwards. But guys, at the end of the day, opposite of vulnerability, that like keeping it all to yourself, is just as risky because it can lead to loneliness and shallow friendships, being disconnected, really being controlled by your fear. Guys, God doesn't want us to be controlled and crippled by fear. He doesn't want us to cry in front of classrooms. No, he wants us to live our lives out for him. There's this story of King David that this is a great example of what God is really calling for our lives and how we can live unafraid. And it's a story that starts with the Ark of the Covenant. The Ark of the Covenant was this ark that was this representation of God's presence. And it was stolen away from the nation of Israel. So it wasn't in their possession. They didn't know where it was. And David really wanted it back because the nation of Israel, it was the people of God. It was people that worshiped and followed God. And so he worked really hard to get it back. And the day finally came when they got it back in their possession and they brought it back to Jerusalem. And David was pumped. David was excited. David was like high-fiving literally anyone he could find. His response to the excitement of this moment was he took off his royal jackets and he went down to the street and he started dancing. I'm sure he was like singing. He was doing like cool high fives with anyone he could meet. He was just there with all the people celebrating because of this thing that was happening. And at the same time, his wife was up in their castle in the window looking down at how he was reacting to this, how he was celebrating, how he was dancing in the streets. Later on, when he came home, she looked at him and she was so upset. She was like, "What were you doing? You looked ridiculous. Like, you were crazy. Like, that's not how a king should act." And she just tore into him because she was so upset that he was dancing in the streets. And King David's answer, his response to her, is so good. It's so key. And it can help us understand what this unafraid life looks like. And so I'm going to read it so I don't mess it up because I want you to hear the words. So it's in 2 Samuel chapter 6 is this whole story. You can go back and read it if you want to. But 2 Samuel chapter 6 verse 21 and 22. David says, "I was dancing before the Lord, who chose me above your father and all his family. He appointed me as the leader of Israel, the people of God. So I celebrate before the Lord. Yes, and I am willing to look even more foolish than this, even to be humiliated in my own eyes." Friends, David is living out who God created him to be. He's not letting his fear of humiliation, his fear of what people think of him, control what he does. Instead, he lets God guide him in his actions and guide him into being who he was created to be. We have that option in our life as well. We can be up in the window, sitting in the window, keeping to ourselves, being who we feel like the world has told us to be, trying to keep hidden the parts of us that we don't like. Or we can be dancing in the street, being true to who God created us to be. God has given us gifts and abilities and the things that we like and our personality, all specifically for each of us. And God has called us to live out being the person that He calls us to be, that He created us to be. And so are you going to let the fear of exposure, fear of inadequacy, fear of what others think of you, fear of not being good enough, keep you in the window when God is telling you to dance in the street, when God wants you to be dancing in the street? God has a calling in your life. He's put people in your life that He wants you to be authentic with. He has people that He wants you to tell about your faith to. He wants you to not be afraid to live as the person with the personality and the interests that He created you with. I have one last story as we wrap up tonight before we head into small groups. And I think it's this awesome illustration of what this could look like in our lives. And it's the story of Moses. Maybe you've heard it before, like if you grew up in Sunday school, you probably have. But there's this moment where Moses finds himself in the desert and he sees this burning bush, this like crazy miracle by God. And God speaks through the bush and He says, "Moses, let my people go," you know? He says, "Moses, my people are being enslaved. You gotta go tell Pharaoh that he's gotta let them go. I need you to go speak for me." There's this one detail, that Moses has a speech impediment. He has a stammer or a stutter, and he doesn't speak really clearly. Speaking to groups of people or just like in front of people isn't one of his strong suits. And so Moses responds to God. He's like, "I don't think you know. I don't think you get it. Like, I am not the best for this job. Like, I'm not going to do well at this. I can't speak clearly. Like, you gotta find someone else. There's gotta be someone else that you want to do this, because you're asking for someone to go persuade Pharaoh into letting all of his slaves go, and I don't think I'm the best fit for that." And so Moses is like, "I don't know, I shouldn't do this. I'm not good enough for this." And God responds saying, "No, I want you to go tell Pharaoh to let my people go." And so Moses has two options. Number one, he could stay in the window. He could say no. He could keep hiding. He could play it safe, trust in what he felt like he could do, trust in the security of not stepping outside of his comfort zone. Or, number two, he could be vulnerable. Despite his feelings of inadequacy, his feelings of not being enough, he could step into what God was asking from him. He could step into who God had created him to be. Not because he knows the outcome, not because it's not scary, but he knows that that's what he's supposed to do. And the biggest key to that is vulnerability. He had to be vulnerable to do all that God wanted from him. And friends, in this season of quarantine, it's so easy, it would be so easy to not be vulnerable, to keep everyone at a hand's distance, to sit in the window, keep yourself reserved. But friends, God doesn't want you to let your fear keep you from being who He created you to be. God doesn't want you to live back afraid, trying to match what the world says you should be. He wants you to live trusting in who He has created you to be. He can't let your fear keep you from being who God created you to be. Let's pray. Dear God, I thank you for Wednesday nights and Zoom. I thank you for your scripture and the opportunity to learn from it. And Lord, I just pray for the conversations ahead, that our students would be vulnerable about being vulnerable, that we would get to have real conversations, understanding what it could look like for us to lean in to who you've created us to be, to take steps into doing the things that are uncomfortable for us and follow you well. All these things in your name. We love you and we need you. Amen.
Man, what an incredible word from Jess. I hope that message was encouraging to you and also challenging for you to be vulnerable, to be the real you, and to go and pursue the people that God has put right around you, right? Because we are stuck in our homes, we've got to reach people digitally and the people right next door to us. So I want you to be encouraged today. Right now, at 7:30, we're going to start our online Zoom small groups. Hopefully, you've gotten a text from your leader with the link to the Zoom small group. Here's a few things to remember about Zoom. Make sure you're muted if you're not talking. And let's also make sure that we have our video so we can see our face. Like, seeing our faces is important when we talk. And also, don't walk around the room. Don't be that guy that's got their phone looking up at the ceiling, up in your nose. So make sure you're in a place where you can talk freely. And if you haven't gotten a text from your leader, here's what I want you to do, is I want you to text this number, 817-523-9393. Again, that's 817-523-9393. And we're gonna help you get connected to your small group that's about to start here in just a few minutes. So enjoy your small groups, have an incredible, incredible time. And we can't wait to hear how God is gonna use you in this season of life. We'll see you again next week.